Welcome to the deep dive. We take complex research, sort of break it down, and give you the insights you need. Today, we're really plunging into something fascinating, what our sources call a vital, often underrated communication network, the gut-brain axis.
Yeah, it's critical for too long, we've treated the gut and the brain almost like they're in separate buildings. You know, the brain's the CEO, the gut's just processing.
Just doing its job down there.
Exactly. But this deep dive shows they're linked, physically and biochemically. There's this constant, crucial conversation happening between them.
And that's really our mission today, isn't it? To give you a detailed map of that conversation, because it's not just about, an occasional stomachache.
Not at all. The state of your gut is genuinely influencing your mood, your memory, even potentially your risk for serious neurological issues.
The health of one really impacts the other profoundly.
We absolutely have to stop thinking of them in isolation. They're like codependent partners in your overall well-being. And to understand that partnership, well, we got to start with the physical infrastructure, the wiring.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. This sort of nervous superhighway connecting these two massive organs. And you really can't talk about the physical side without starting with the vagus nerve, right?
The vagus nerve is, it's the biggest connector here. It's like the main data cable running from the brainstem right down into your digestive system. But what's really critical to understand, and the sources emphasize this, is that it's not a one-way street.
Ah, okay. So not just brain telling gut what to do.
Precisely. The brain uses it, sure, but signals travel powerfully in both directions. The gut is constantly sending updates back to the brain about what's going on down there.
And the gut itself, it has more processing power than we might think. I saw a number about neurons.
Oh, absolutely. When we think neurons, we think brain, right? The huge 86 billion or so up there. But your digestive tract, it contains an absolutely astonishing number. Something like 168 million neurons embedded right in the gut wall.
168 million. Just in the gut.
Just in the gut. That's why people call it the mini brain. Think about it. 168 million neurons, all connected back to your main CPU via the vagus nerve and other pathways.
Wow.
It means the gut isn't just reacting. It's capable of significant coordination, its own regulation. It's more than just a digestive tube.
So if that vagus nerve is sending signals both ways, that kind of flips things, doesn't it? Like maybe that stress or anxiety you feel isn't just causing the gut ache.
Exactly. The state of the gut itself could be generating signals that your brain interprets as anxiety or change in mood.
It gives trusting your gut a whole new biological meaning.
It really does, a very literal one.
Okay, so we've established the physical wiring, the nerves, but the depth of this connection, that comes down to the language they speak, right? The chemicals.
Yes. We're moving from the sort of physical wires to the biochemical signals. Your gut and brain talk extensively using neurotransmitters. These are the chemicals controlling everything from, sensation and movement in the brain.
To how the gut actually functions, contracts, and processes things?
Exactly. And here's where it gets, really fascinating, especially for anyone interested in mental health. Serotonin.
Right. Everyone knows serotonin. Mood, happiness. Mostly think of it as a brain chemical.
That's the common view. But the research points to a pretty shocking truth about where most of it is made. These specialized cells in the small intestine, they're called enterochromaffin cells. They produce the highest concentration of serotonin found anywhere in the body.
Wait, the highest concentration is in the gut, not the brain.
That's what the science indicates. The gut is the major manufacturing hub for serotonin. And yes, it's critical for mood, learning, memory, sleep. But it also manages core gut functions. Bowel movements, nausea, appetite signals.
It's like the perfect example of that codependence you mentioned.
Absolutely essential link. And it's not just our own gut cells doing the talking. The trillions of microbes living in there, they're constantly producing chemicals too.
Ah, the microbiome. Right, so they're making their own signal.
Definitely. The gut microbiome is basically a huge chemical factory. For instance, certain gut bacteria produce the neurotransmitter GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid.
GABA, I know that one. It's linked to calmness, right? Reducing anxiety.
That's the one. It helps control feelings of fear and anxiety in the brain. So having a healthy, balanced gut microbial community literally contributes chemicals that promote a calmer brain state.
Okay. And then there are those short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs. We hear about them a lot. What are they actually doing in this gut-brain conversation?
So SCFAs are basically byproducts. When your gut microbes digest the fiber, you eat the stuff you can't digest yourself, they ferment it and produce these SCFAs. The main ones are butyrate, propionate, and acetate.
And these get into the bloodstream.
They do. They circulate around the body, and they definitely affect brain function. Things like helping regulate appetite, telling you you're full. That's one major role.
You mentioned butyrate specifically. Is there something special about that one?
Yeah, butyrate deserves a special mention. Its role goes beyond just appetite. It's actually crucial for your brain's security system, the blood-brain barrier, the BBB.
Okay, the BBB, that's the protective layer, keeps bad stuff out of the brain.
Exactly. Think of it like a very, very selective filter or security checkpoint. It lets nutrients in, but blocks toxins, pathogens, things that could harm the brain.
So where does butyrate come in?
Butyrate and the microbes that make it are like the maintenance crew for that security barrier. They help keep the connections between the cells of the BBB really tight and strong.
Ah, so if you don't have enough butyrate?
Then that barrier can become leaky, compromised. And that means harmful things might get through from the blood into your sensitive brain tissue. It's profound, really. What you feed your gut microbes directly impacts the structural integrity of your brain's own defense system.
Wow, okay. That idea of barrier integrity or lack of it leads us to the darker side of this connection, inflammation.
Right. The gut-brain axis is fundamentally tied to your immune system. Your gut lining is the gatekeeper deciding what gets absorbed, what stays out, if that barrier fails or the immune system senses trouble.
It goes on high alert, inflammation.
Exactly. And a short period of inflammation is normal, it's protective. But if that high alert state stays switched on for too long, we get chronic systemic inflammation.
And that kind of chronic inflammation, the sources link it pretty directly to some serious brain disorders, don't they?
They do,
Okay.
strongly. Chronic inflammation is associated with conditions like depression, even Alzheimer's disease, and often we can trace the root of that inflammation back to problems with the gut barrier, specifically involving an inflammatory toxin called lipopolysaccharide, LPS.
LPS, okay, tell us about that. What is it and why is it dangerous if it gets out?
So LPS is part of the outer membrane of certain types of bacteria, gram-negative bacteria, that normally live in our gut quite harmlessly. The danger happens when the gut barrier gets damaged, what people often call leaky gut.
Right, the barrier we just talked about with butyrate.
Exactly. If that barrier is compromised, too much of this LPS can leak from the inside of the gut directly into the bloodstream.
And when LPS gets into the blood, what happens then, particularly for the brain?
It triggers a powerful inflammatory response throughout the body. And that inflammation heavily impacts the central nervous system. High levels of LPS in the blood, along with that chronic inflammation, have been consistently linked in research to some really severe conditions.
Like what?
The sources highlight strong associations with severe depression, dementia, and even schizophrenia. It really underscores how the physical state of your gut lining is directly tied to, well, the stability of your mental and cognitive health.
That is quite staggering, connecting leaky gut directly to potentially severe neurological outcomes. So, okay, if the gut lining, the microbes, are this important, the big question for all of us listening is, how do we influence this? How do we improve the conversation?
Well, given that gut bacteria clearly affect brain health, the most direct approach is to try and alter your gut bacteria for the better. And the main tools for that are diet and targeted supplements, specifically probiotics and prebiotics.
Probiotics, those are the live beneficial bacteria themselves, right? You introduce them directly.
Correct. Live microorganisms that, when you consume them in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit. But there's actually a more specific term popping up in the research related to the brain: psychobiotics.
Psychobiotics, okay, what are they?
They're basically a subset of probiotics. Specific strains of bacteria that studies have shown can have a beneficial effect directly on brain function and mental state.
So like mood-boosting bacteria.
In a way, yes. The study cited shows certain psychobiotics can help improve symptoms of stress, anxiety, and depression. They're like targeted support for the gut-brain dialogue.
And they need fuel to work, which is where prebiotics come in.
Exactly. Prebiotics are the food for these beneficial microbes, both the ones already there and the psychobiotics you might add. They're typically non-digestible fibers.
Like the fiber we get from plants.
Mostly, yes. Your gut bacteria ferment these fibers, and that fermentation process produces those helpful compounds we talked about, like the SCFAs, including butyrate. They're like fertilizer for your internal garden.
And there's actual evidence this works for mood.
There is. For example, one study mentioned showed that taking a specific prebiotic called galactoligosaccharides was linked to reduced depressive symptoms. So it's not just about digestion. Specific fibers can feed bacteria that influence complex brain states.
Okay, this is all leading to the really practical part, the actionable stuff, the gut-brain menu, if you will. If we want to actively support this axis, what should be on our plates?
Right. We've boiled it down from the sources to 5 key food categories. And these aren't your general eat healthy tips. These are specifically chosen for how they support the physical and chemical needs of the gut-brain connection.
Okay, hit us with number 1.
First up, omega-3 fats, primarily from oily fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines.
Yeah.
Omega-3s are crucial building blocks for the brain itself, but importantly, studies show they also increase the diversity of good bacteria in the gut and help reduce the risk of inflammatory brain disorders. So, structural and functional benefits.
Good fats doing double duty. Okay, what's next?
Number 2, fermented foods. Things like live yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi. These foods actually contain live, healthy microbes. It's like directly importing beneficial bacteria.
So you're adding reinforcements straight in.
Precisely. And research shows consuming these can directly alter brain activity and potentially improve mood pathways.
Makes sense. Okay, category 3.
This goes back to feeding the good guys. High fiber foods. We're talking whole grains, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables. A wide variety is key. These provide those prebiotic fibers we mentioned.
The fuel for the SCFA production line.
Exactly. And the practical benefit. The source material notes that diets rich in these fibers can actually help reduce levels of stress hormones circulating in the body.
Less stress hormone just from eating more fiber. Interesting. All right, number 4.
Number 4 is about plant power. Polyphenol-rich foods. Think cocoa or dark chocolate, green tea, olive oil, even coffee in moderation. Polyphenols are potent plant chemicals.
What do they do for the gut-brain axis?
Well, your gut bacteria digest them, and this process seems to encourage the growth of more healthy bacteria. Plus, polyphenols themselves have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects that can benefit the brain. Some research links them to improved cognition.
Okay, plants protecting the brain via the gut. And the final category.
Number 5 brings us back to that key neurotransmitter. Tryptophan-rich foods. Tryptophan is an amino acid, and it's the essential raw material your body needs to make serotonin.
Ah, the precursor. So where do we find it?
Good sources include things like turkey, eggs, and cheese. By eating these foods, you're basically supplying the gut, remember, the main serotonin factory, with the building blocks it needs to produce that vital mood-regulating chemical.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What's the big picture here? Our deep dive today really confirms this incredibly intricate network between the gut and brain. It uses nerves, millions of neurons, a flood of chemicals.
It's far more sophisticated than we used to think.
Yeah. And the really crucial takeaway seems to be that this isn't just passively happening to us. By deliberately changing what's going on in our gut, the types of bacteria, the fuel they get, we might actually be able to improve not just digestion, but our fundamental brain health, mood, resilience, maybe even cognition.
Absolutely. And that leaves us with, well, a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Given everything we've discussed, that your gut makes most of your body's serotonin, that it has 168 million neurons operating down there.
Yeah.
How often do we experience something, a sudden wave of anxiety, a shift in our mood, maybe even a gut feeling or intuition, and immediately assume it's purely a head thing, originating only in the brain?
When maybe the signal is actually coming up from the gut.
Exactly. When maybe that powerful chemical, that neurological message, is flowing strongly in the other direction, from gut to brain. Something to think about.
It definitely makes you look at your lunch plate a bit differently, doesn't it? Maybe explore some of those food groups. We talked about the omega-3s, the fermented foods, the fiber. See if clarifying that conversation in your gut helps clear up your thinking too. Until next time on The Deep Dive.